Have you ever wondered how a daily journal can go from this to this? I'm Titleless Musings, and in this series, we will be exploring journaling, how to begin, my advice for you as somebody who has journaled for 4 years, and all the different things that come with the art of journaling. We'll discuss how to practice journaling, how to set up a journal, different pages you can add, and my best tips that I wish I had known when I started journaling. Hello and welcome to or welcome back to my channel. I'm Titleless Musings, and in this 9th episode of the Musings on Journaling series, we'll be talking about how to get back to journaling if you've taken a hiatus or a break or missed days for any other reason. There's not too much to explain about this, so let's just get straight into it. Despite the fact that I have journaled almost every day for 4 years, I have had to take a couple of journal breaks for several reasons. Sometimes it's been due to physical or mental health, other times something really big has happened to my life, and I've just had to step away from journaling for a while to process that. There are lots of reasons that people take breaks from their journaling, but that doesn't mean that you have to give up the hobby entirely. When I've come back from a journal break, I tend to do so rather quickly. By that I mean I'll spend only one of my daily entries talking about where I went and why I was gone instead of dragging it out over multiple entries. But that doesn't mean that this first entry back won't be 5, 6, 7, 8 pages. It allows me to get right back into the swing of journaling super quickly without dwelling too long on an explanation. It also gives me the chance immediately to talk about what happened or why I was gone instead of having to act like I wasn't actually gone. This makes it easier when I'm reading it back to say, oh, I was gone because of work or something similar. I personally try to avoid journal breaks unless they are inevitable, simply because I want to document each day in my life. This is not a must, but for me, missing days often means I miss out on a lot of explanations of what goes on in my life because my days are just that busy. So I really try to avoid breaks if I can. The good news is that restarting journaling if you've taken a break does not have to be rocket science. Here are some tips I have for you on coming back to your journal. First of all, as I just said, you should have your first entry back via catch-up. If possible, you could do like I do. Do it all on one entry, but just take a lot of pages and a lot of time to go over where you went and where you were up to. Let your thoughts flow though, as they usually would. It's also completely okay if that sounds like a lot of time and effort, and you either don't have the time to do it or simply don't want to do it. You can also break this comeback up over multiple entries. When I've come back from a journal break, I try to do it on a weekend so that I know I've got time to sit and write for hours if I need to. If having to come back and talk about why you were gone is too much, you can also start with a creative entry, perhaps a drawing or some doodles and scribbles. I've also done this too, where I've come back with a movie review that I watched in the time when I was gone, or I drew a photo to represent why I was gone if the words were just too hard to get or they were escaping me. When you come back to journaling, you may feel like you've lost a bit of comfort and connection with your journal. So don't feel like you have to come back with a ton of emotions all at once, or that you have to come back and immediately dig into your deepest, darkest secrets. A good start could just be a quick sentence of, hey, I was gone because generally this thing happened, but today it's a new day and the weather is nice. Sometimes writing about those superficial things can help you relax enough to open up again to your journal. To add to my last point as well, you don't have to feel like your comeback has to be a really big thing in the journal if that's not what applies to you. It's perfectly okay to just do a simple entry of, I was gone but I'm back, or not to mention you were gone at all, or even to just get right back into a daily entry the way you would have before you left. There are lots of reasons that you may not want to talk about it in your journal or may not want to get into it straight away, and that works as well. Of course, if you take a break from your journal, you are going to have entries that are missing or missing days. Now, whether or not you've marked those days is completely up to you in the way you journal. I don't mark a day until I'm actually on that day. So for me, I would just notice something like a page went from August 14th to August 22nd, for instance, just to use that as an example. So for me, I don't really handle these missing days in my journal. As much as I miss those entries because I've had to skip days, it is what it is. I don't cover the journal pages or skip ahead or anything like this. I just pick up where I left off on the day that I come back. If, as I said, you've pre-planned the days and then skipped them, you could fill them with drawings and stickers, or cross the date out and replace it with the current date. But if you don't pre-plan days and you just write the days as a header on each page, pick up when you come back. There also comes the question with missing days and falling off the journal bandwagon of when do you mix digital and physical journaling? Now, this may seem like a completely different topic, but this is actually very applicable to this kind of thing. In the past, when I've had to take a break from journaling to handle something like grief, for example, I've continued to digital journal, but just not physical journal. Sometimes it's helpful to just have a really quick place to write something down as opposed to having to pull out my journal, get a pen, pick a color. That's just a lot to do. So if you're taking a break but you still want to write, you just don't want to have to do it physically, you could mix digital and physical journaling. I'll also mix digital and physical journaling if I don't have access to my journal. So if I'm at an appointment, for instance, I'll jot down notes on my phone and write out questions or thoughts. Or if I'm out grocery shopping and remember that I need to order birthday cards, I'll write that in my phone and then come home and do it and document in my journal that I did it so that I remember and don't reorder cards. I'll also mix digital journaling with physical journaling if I'm unable to write. One time I had to take a journal break for medical reasons, so I would journal on my laptop for a week and then I printed it out and stuck that in my journal. Lastly, as I said at the beginning of this section, I'll mix digital and physical journaling if I have a lot of thoughts to process. Sometimes you just need to get it out as fast as possible and then you can rewrite it in your journal once your brain is quieter. To end this section, let's talk about, should you worry about missing days? No, you should not worry about missing days. There is no punishment for it. You're not less of a journaler or a bad person for missing days. It's just something that happens. Life happens to us all. Don't worry at all about missing days. Just pick up where you left off when you can and make your comeback as comfortable for yourself as possible. One of the biggest reasons I've found most people take journal breaks for is because their life situations have changed. When we all start journaling, our life is a very specific way, and as we continue journaling, we get to watch our life change and grow. That's one of the most beautiful things about it, but then the question becomes, how do I make sure that I'm not giving up on my journal? How can I keep from taking too many breaks and completely giving up on it? So my answer is to change up, not give up. It's no surprise that life changes, not just as we get older, but as life situations change and adapt. So how do you even make that journal fit? For one, you can change up your routine. Maybe right now you journal every morning, but your new job starts at 8 a.m. You could always try journaling during your lunch break or in the evening as a way to wind down. If you move houses, for instance, you could always set up a new peaceful space that you feel comfortable journaling in. Another way to adapt your journal is to change it up. Maybe you're engaged and you use some of the pages of the journal to plan your wedding. Or maybe you've got a new kiddo in your house and maybe you decide to focus more of the decorations of your journal on their milestone. Your journal could start as one thing and become another as you grow and adapt. One thing that I've done in my journal as I've gotten older is change it from a place where I'm just doodling and writing about my day to a place where I'm tracking deadlines and to-dos, and I'm also scheduling events. It really gives me the space to free my mind and plan the things that are coming up. Now let's go over how to step back when you feel like giving up. If you're getting to a point in your journal where you just feel like giving up entirely, my advice is to step back and reduce how often you're doing it. Bring it from every day you're journaling to only 3 times a week or even once a week. Allow yourself to step back and see if you're just burning yourself out. If you're still feeling like you don't want to do it anymore, stop entirely for a week and see how you feel. Do you miss the journal and want to return to it, perhaps less frequently or with a change in pace? Or do you feel like you're better off without it? Let me reiterate a point I've made throughout this whole series. It is perfectly okay to do this hobby for a while and then realize it's not for you. But it's also perfectly okay to realize you just need a break or to shake up your routine a little bit. So lastly, let's cover some changes I've made in my own journal. As I said earlier, I've changed my journal into more of a planner than before. I've also used it as a sort of meeting minutes dump for work or as a place to dump ideas for my YouTube channel. My routine has really changed now compared to when I started journaling. I will just journal whenever I have time instead of giving myself a designated time because that time could be different every day. I also don't really decorate my journal pages anymore. It's not that I didn't enjoy it, it's just that it was a lot of work and I'm a tired human being. Journals are made to adapt to your life, not the other way around. So don't be afraid to try new things and work towards adapting your journal to fit your life. This video was one of the shorter ones in this Musings on Journaling series because honestly, coming back to journaling is totally personal. What worked for me may not work for you, what worked for you may not work for somebody else, that kind of thing. But hopefully my tips and tricks have given you some ideas to kickstart your journaling if you're coming back to it after a break. The most important takeaway from this video is that taking time away from your journal can not only be needed, but that doesn't mean that it has to be scary and daunting. It really isn't as difficult as it seems to come back to it after a break, and it can even be rewarding to come back after a break. I really appreciate you taking the time to watch my video. Please do consider liking and subscribing to stay tuned with the series, and feel free to drop your questions or comments below. I'll be adding questions to upcoming videos to help you get better acquainted with daily journaling. As always, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.